Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of A Breath of Fresh Career. I'm Justin Kane. I'm the host. This is Season 1, Episode 11. I'm joined here by Jim Burchell. Really excited to have Jim. Jim and I have known each other for, 12 years, 13, maybe more. Easily, yeah. Right? And I can't believe this is Episode 11. So I want to do it.
To you.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. And here's a quick intro on Jim. Jim is a senior account executive at a company by the name of Ordergroove. And Ordergroove enables relationship commerce experiences for hundreds of brands and retailers, including Unilever, L'Oreal, Honest Company, Walmart, Pepsi, and Nestle. Aside from being an AE at Ordergroove, Jim is a father of 6. He served as a supply officer in the United States Marine Corps and loves to fly fish in the Pac Northwest. First of all, coming off of Veterans Day, thank you so much for your service. Something that I looking back, I wish I was able to do, but thank you for
I appreciate that
as a Marine.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Tell us
episode 11. Am I the final episode of the year? I mean, what? Season
probably,
finale?
Yeah, no, I don't know, man. If you want me to make it that way, we can. I'm thinking about kicking off season 2 in January, so we'll go with the calendar year per seasons. And
sounds good.
I try to do them twice a month, so that tells me that I have at least one, maybe 2 more. Maybe we'll do a Christmas episode.
Oh, nice.
Who knows?
Well, you've got to do Christmas parties virtually these days anyway, so that would be a good idea.
Yeah. What we should do is maybe we'll do everyone that I've interviewed thus far. We'll maybe do a
great
Christmas
idea
party. That'd be kind of cool. We'll talk about that. But before we jump in, tell us what a supply officer is. What's a supply officer, and what's the day in life? Is that pronounced? Is that referred to as an SO?
Actually, we called it suppo. I mean, it's an interesting way of calling it. But yeah, I mean, so for any given company or battalion or squadron in the Marine, each unit has a kind of equipment that they've been, given to the job, right? And so it's the suppo's job to take care of all of that equipment, make sure it's in good order, manage the storage, replacement of the gear. And that includes everything from canteens up to radar system, tanks, right? I mean, it's everything a particular company or unit has to do their job. And usually we're also responsible for the financial budget as well. So all the purchasing, contract, and things like that too.
Wow.
Yeah. So an interesting gig.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Especially when you're given that job as a 23-year-old second lieutenant, and you've got, in my case, a dozen Marines under my command, and I think I had a $25 million budget. I'm like, what the heck am I doing here? Yeah, it took some getting used to, for sure.
$25 million. One for me, 2 for you, or vice versa. So when I've got a lot of friends who served in order veterans, and a lot of stories that are great stories.
Yeah.
Aside from bonfire, campfire stories, there's got to be one story that you love to tell that you want to share with everyone. A memory story. Come on, you got to bring something out of the.
Well, do you want a G version, a PG, or an R-rated version?
You
right?
can go whatever you can do whatever you're comfortable with.
There are so many to pick from, but the one that honestly kind of still sticks out in my mind was after I got out of the Marine Corps, which might sound a little bit odd. I'd been out, 5 or 6 years, maybe a little bit more. My wife Darcy and I, she was 6 months pregnant with our first with our middle daughter, and we're stuck in the Philly airport, right? Horrible weather. It's like 8:30 at night. No hotels are available because all flights have been canceled. And I'm sitting there thinking, 6 months pregnant, not in a great mood, gonna sleep on a bench. Okay, what can I do? And I remembered, Wally lives outside of Philly, about an hour and a half. So I give Steve, his name's Steve Wallace, I give Wally a call. And really just, at my first thought, I'm going to pass the time. I'm bored. I'm just going to see how he's doing. And 5 minutes of conversation, he's like, I'm on my way. What are you talking about? Like, I'm going to drive. I think, dude, it's an hour and a half. It's 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. It's like, no worries, I'll be there. So he drives that hour and a half, then drives us back to his house, puts us up for the night, gets up at 6 the next morning so that we can get to our, whatever it was, 9:30, 10 o'clock flight the next morning. And it wasn't even a prompted thing. It's just like, yeah, that's what we do. And we take
Wow.
care of one another. It's so, I mean, it's not a while I'm in on active duty kind of story, but I think it does illustrate what we call the esprit de corps, right? The idea of everybody working together for one common thing. So yeah,
That's
I don't
amazing.
know if it's a sexy story, but a good one that I always think about.
Once a Marine, always a Marine. And by the way,
Bingo.
not to change the subject, but just for those of you who are tuning in via YouTube, the YouTube channel, your background there is awesome. It looks like you're in a studio of sorts. What?
I actually am. So I work out of, so I live in rural Southern Oregon. We lived in Portland for the last 16 years. We sold our house almost exactly a year ago. Had a house built down here. It's where I grew up. It's where my wife grew up. So we knew we'd always kind of get back to this area. And I work out of we'll call it a WeWork office, a community office, and they've got a number of people here that do podcasts and whatnot. And so I just asked Trevor, who owns the place, I'm like, hey, Trev, do you mind if I use this stuff? And I just thought I would just use the room because it would be quiet. He's like, no, let me get you set up. So I've got this awesome mic and this recording board over here with the lights going off all over the place. So yeah, it's a cool little setup for sure.
That is awesome. That is great. Well, I appreciate you being in that good environment because the clarity is good here. It's really good.
Good.
Let's talk business. Let's talk business.
Let's do it.
Ordergroove, in your words, as if we don't know each other. One of the mistakes that I make is that, I talk to people like yourself all day long. I mean, we've known each other for a number of years and it's normal for me. So in your words, tell us what Ordergroove, what you guys do and how it works, please.
Sure. Yeah, so we do what we call relationship commerce. And at the core of that technology is a subscription management program where we help our clients, like you met some of them earlier, L'Oreal, Walmart, Home Depot, et cetera. We help those merchants manage their customer interaction with respect to their subscription program. So it's not only the subscription, though, it can also be things around the ability to do retention marketing, customer acquisition marketing outside or within the platform, allows consumers really kind of to manage their own subscription. So, the idea that one of the biggest reasons people will quit a subscription program is what we call overstock. They just have too much dog food or too much whatever it might be.
Razors, too many razors.
Too many razors, too much well, maybe not wine. One of the verticals I hold.
Is there such a thing?
Yeah, exactly. So you just got too much stuff. So our system will allow people to kind of skip an order or push that order out instead of having to cancel it, meaning now the merchant has to go back and spend, paid media dollars to reacquire those people. So it really is around that entire kind of soup to nuts idea of a subscription management program.
I understand. Wow. So by the way, I've lived that, I've totally lived that with some of the subscription services. I'm thinking Beachbody as an example, right? I was subscribing to, what the heck is it called? Shakeology is their protein shake.
Yeah.
And like the stuff is unbelievable. I don't know if you've ever had it, but I mean, it's to die for. And it's, by the way, worth every freaking penny, and not a plug for Beachbody, but like this stuff's dynamite. However, they're 30 servings. We don't drink a protein shake every day. You know what I mean? I might have 3 a week or something like that, like in between meals if I want it. And so like I would have this subscription and, 2-3 months go by and I have like 4 boxes of Shakeology, and I'm like, oh, yeah, this is a year's worth. I don't, at $160 or something like that, per container. So I had to go in and cancel. I had to go in and just cancel my subscription which by the way, wasn't like easy to do. So that's great that you guys are providing that. Really quick. I mean, you and I have known each other for a while. Tell us, the listeners, how you got your start in enterprise software. How, tell us about it.
Yeah, that was a while ago. So kind of an interesting way, right? I was, after I got out of the Marine Corps, I approached recruiters or a recruiter that specialize in what they call JMOs, junior military officers, right? Guys who are in their mid to late 20s, just separating from the service. And there was usually 2 paths. You were going to become a drug rep or you're going to become a stockbroker. And I thought, all right, maybe I don't have the face for being a drug rep. They're all too attractive. I'll be the stockbroker guy. So I went to work in that industry. And the last one I worked at was Morgan Stanley. And I had a client who was a general manager of what he liked to call the eBay for computer parts. As a technology company, you know, people who repaired these type of computers and whatnot, they'd go in, they'd buy their stuff, they'd list their inventory, et cetera. And one day I'm just like, yeah, I've seen all these IPOs, companies like Priceline and, you know, others going public. And I thought, maybe I need to be on this technology side of things. So I reached out to Doug. He's like, yeah, come on over. I worked there for about 1.5 years or so. And then found an ad, quite honestly, for a company called Website Story, which doesn't exist anymore.
Nope.
You know, merged with Visual Sciences, bought by Omniture. Anyway, that was 2001.
Jim,
August
I think that's when I met you, buddy. That's crazy. Website Story, 2003 or 2. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And so that, you know, that was really the start of it. Then moved from, at that point we lived in San Diego. People think I'm crazy for leaving San Diego for Oregon, but hey, we grew up here. Got recruited to go to Web Trends, and then it just started, right? My Website Story boss brought me to Omniture, got recruited to go to Exact Target, and you know, the list just kind of keeps going. But yeah, it's been an interesting work for sure. I mean, you and I have talked about it. If there's any folks on the VC side of the house listening, the last 5 companies I've worked for have all gotten acquired. So yeah, maybe we're a good investment. But yeah, it's been an interesting 20 years. No, oh man, 20 years. No, 19. I can still say 19. Yeah.
Well, crazy. I'll tell you what. You know, I know your track record of success. Just as being friends and I know that you have a lot to do. You know, I can remember even at your time at Exact Target, and your time at Omniture as well. And we'll put a link to your LinkedIn profile so people can connect with you at the end of this as well. What, you know, so you're a senior AE at Ordergroove. What's the day in the life? Walk us through it.
Yeah, I mean, well, one of the things I've always done is, you know, 4:30 o'clock, whatever time of the day, I'll map out my day for the next day. And there's always some things that constantly sit on my calendar. You know, I've always got the hour in the morning set aside for prospecting. Yeah, you've got the calls of going on, whether they be, you know, discovery calls, whether they be kind of, you know, mid-sales cycle or trying to get a deal closed. But then the day kicks off and sometimes it just gets blown up, right? I mean, you're well aware of this. Things just happen. And I mean, you try to manage through those. You know, I'm a huge list taker or writer, right? I've tried to do it on Wunderlist and other technologies, but I just write them down in a notebook. What do I got to do today to get the stuff that I know I need to get done? But yeah, I mean, it's huge. You've got to set aside that time for prospecting. I really don't care what role you're in within sales, you've got to do it. And then it's just a matter of, you know, managing people through that sales cycle for sure.
I equate it to muscle training, right? It's like, dude, if you don't lift calves, if you don't do abs, when you first walk in that gym, or, you know, when you first start working out, you ain't going to do them because you're going to be tired at the end of your workout. Hopefully, if you're doing a good job working out. And then you're looking at the clock, you know, we're processing 17,000 thoughts an hour here. So, you know, you're looking at the clock saying, oh my God, I got to go get on the call. I got to go do this. I got to do that. And like, you know, there go calves and abs again. So you got to do them first, just like prospecting. What, you know, Morgan Stanley, VP of Investments, 10-year stint there, getting into technology, essentially all the companies you've worked for have been acquired, which is pretty unbelievable to think about that track record. What's one thing you wish you had known, you know, when you began this career in enterprise software?
Good question. I mean, I think without a doubt, it's learn to have a work-life balance, because I didn't, especially when I was a rookie broker. I mean, though that was back in the days when cold calling, I mean, I'm really going to date myself. Email wasn't that big a thing.
Yeah.
And so it was, You know, I had that 3x5 card that I had printed off with 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way through about 250 typically. And I just sat there and dialed, check them off. How many calls do I make a day? Right. And you can't get everybody in the morning. You can't get everybody in the afternoon. So you got to stay late. So I was, you know, for me, 60 to 70 hours a week was the norm. Going on Saturday, you know, say, sorry, Darcy, my wife, hey, honey, I'm just going to go in for 12 hours. 7 hours later, I show up back at home, right? I didn't have that off switch, which you've got to have. You've got to take time to recharge those batteries, or you're just useless to everybody else, your job included, right? I mean, you have to have that ability to have that balance, and I just didn't early on.
Great athletes, man. They can flip the switch. It's crazy.
Yeah.
You walk into the rink, you know, you might be palsing around before you walk in that back door to the locker room. And as soon as you step foot on those rubber mats, man, the switch is flipped. And I can remember it myself.
Yeah.
It's just a different story for sure. What, we talk a little bit about, I mean, this is a breath of fresh career, right? As a podcast, and careers come in all different shapes and forms. I'm actually talking to a friend of mine who's a CEO of a biotech company and thinking about bringing him on as well. We're talking about that. I mean, it's really cool. He's just, you know, he's finishing up around these guys. He's going to be a CEO of a publicly traded company in a couple months, which is, you know, is incredible for his resume. That's a career. Your process as a sales guy, take me through prospect to close. I mean, we're talking big customers going back to that list here, right? But like Nestle, Pepsi, Walmart, like they're huge. Do these deals take a year? Do they take 6 months? Do they take 3 years? What?
It really depends, right? Like if we'd have had this conversation when I was, say, at Visual IQ, where we did multi-touch attribution, or Blue Sky data management platform, those deals took 6 months was considered a quick close. You know, the typical was 9, 12 to 18 months. At Ordergroove, doing somewhat to our price points less than those. I mean, my average deal at Visual IQ was, you know, 350, 400K. You know, here our average is probably closer to 75, you know, 50, 75, 100K, depending upon the size of the company. So the sales cycles typically are a little bit less. They're also a little bit less because they're not as convoluted a sales cycle, if you will, right? Like when I was at Blue Sky, data management platforms, DMPs were fairly new. So it was a complete and total evangelical sale, right? Like not only did I have to convince them to do what Blue Sky did in terms of using a data management platform, but that they even needed one.
Yeah, you had to educate them.
And I remember the first deal I did at Blue Sky. They worked with a major, it was a huge company, like everybody would know it, major computer manufacturer. Obviously had a lot of help from system integrators and their agencies, and they invited us in and they said, you know, we just paid XYZ agency to give us a point of view on why we need a DMP, but I've got to ask you a question. I'm like, fire away. And he was blunt. He was like, what the hell is a DMP? I don't know still. Right? Like they had paid their agency all this money to do this effort and they still didn't know. So that evangelical piece, just simply that education piece, as you mentioned, Justin, that takes some time. And because a sale like that touches so many different groups within the org, you've got to do an individual sales cycle with marketing and with media and with, you know, everybody else. And so, but over here, it's a little bit shorter because it's pretty straightforward, right? Subscriptions are pretty obvious of what it does and what the value is. About 60% of our clients come to us from already having a solution, whether it's a competitor or maybe they built it in-house. But back to your question of what's my day like? You know, I mentioned the prospecting. That's step one. So because we take a vertical approach versus a geographical sales territory, so I manage two main verticals: anything related to pet care, and then anything related to alcohol.
Two really good things, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, dogs and booze.
Yeah.
It's like all you need, I think, right?
It's stuff I use on a daily basis.
It's all you need.
You know? Yeah. You know, and so and the obvious ones, right? Oh, I better go after Petco. I better go after Purina. Okay, I got to go after Brown Foreman who does Jack Daniels, right? I mean, the big ones you know about, but we obviously go after the whales, no doubt about it. But our sweet spot is kind of the mid-tier size. Tell me five, pet food or pet retailers that are mid-size off the top of your head, right? Unless you live next to one, you just don't know. So a lot of what I do, especially initially, was around list building and who do I want to target. That's still on an ongoing basis, but the bulk of it is obviously done. I'm a huge serial user of LinkedIn. So I use it not only for better understanding who I'm targeting, but I think almost more importantly, who else should I target? We'll dive into it at some point, but you can't be single threaded, i.e., one person that you're selling to in an organization and really get a deal done. If that person has a change of heart or their boss is like, yeah, I don't really think so. I've just spent a week, 2 weeks, a month, 6 months, whatever that time frame is, all for naught. So,
let's talk about that now. So,
yeah.
Who's the primary person you sell to at a Petco? Just using them as an example. Who, within the company, who would you focus on selling to?
Yeah, so we typically start on the marketing side. Like everybody else in this business, you start as high as you can, but you bring up Petco as an example. I'm not going to get the CMO of Petco on the line without them already having some knowledge of what's going on lower within that person's organization. So we usually are targeting kind of the director, senior director, VP level. When it comes to those mid-tier companies I talked about, those three titles might be one person, right? Like it's okay, yeah, I do all of it. But that's what so we try to get into marketing. The merchandising side typically comes into the discussion. Surprisingly, finance, the CFOs and VPs of finance and controllers realize that subscriptions are a really good type of business. It's predictable. You can, it's frictionless, as we like to say, right? I mean, I just keep getting my Shakeology every 30 days. For me, it's Athletic Greens. Like I've got 2 boxes that are unopened and another one's on its way. Like it just keeps coming, but I'm too lazy to go in and change that, but I know I'll keep using it. So we do a lot of different groups. And so, my day really is spent, and LinkedIn comes in really handy. I use Outreach, sales enablement type tool.
Yep.
I use Zoom Info to do research on contacts and who I should go after. So a lot of the work that I'm doing is going through and saying, okay, I've started with Justin, but who else at that company do I need to be talking to? And I may not, do a cold outreach to Sarah or Fred, but rather say, hey, Justin, just doing research on my side. My experience tells me I know that I'm going to need to talk to folks that are in these type of roles. I did a little bit of research on LinkedIn. Should we bring Jane and Sarah, into the mix? And usually they're like, yeah, that makes sense. Or no, they're not really involved in this, but Fred might be, right? So it's that idea that I'm still trying to use that person as that champion, but again, I got to get wider and I got to get deeper.
Yeah, you just took the words out of my mouth, using that person as a champion, and figuring out who you got to be with. It is huge, and a lot of people don't leverage that. It's really weird. I mean, I can remember when I was selling. I'm still in touch with some of the folks that I've sold to. I mean, might not be like all the time, but like annually, I'll just reach out and see how they're doing.
No, agreed. And another piece is, at least for what we do, we're pretty tightly connected to our partner ecosystem. So we work mainly with the various e-commerce platforms that are out there: Shopify, Salesforce, Magento, BigCommerce, et cetera. So there's a lot of that interaction as well in terms of, hey, if I can bring a systems integrator, an SI, some business, I know that that's going to come back to me, or at least it'll come back to Ordergroove, right? I might bring them a pet client and then they might say, oh, I've got an apparel or a food company. Well, that's not me, but hey, at least Ordergroove's still coming out ahead. But it also helps me close those deals. And I learned that one way back when. Like at Website Story, lost a deal to a dude at Web Trends. I just happened to be going over to Web Trends. I went up to, I look into Salesforce. Okay, who worked it? Oh, Mark. Okay, dude, I hated the fact you took that deal. He's like, I didn't even know about that deal. The agency brought it to me. And this light bulb goes off, like, agency, what are you talking about? He talked me through it. And I'm like, oh, okay, that makes perfect sense.
Wow.
Started to implement that into what. So yeah.
You bring
Thankfully,
up an
some of these.
interesting point.
Oh, go ahead.
These front ends. So for those of you listening that don't know what a front end is, it's the e-commerce site. It's the site that you see when you log into Beachbody to order Shakeology. And you talked about integrating with those front ends. You mentioned a couple of the companies that are like on rocket ships, right?
Yeah. Shopify especially.
BigCommerce, like these companies. In terms of Ordergroove, and I'm just asking this question because I know it and I'm curious myself, but
Yeah.
how difficult is the integration? And I'm just thinking about my past, even selling something as simple as affiliate, the integration, because you got to get a product catalog, you got to get all that stuff integrated, right? How difficult is it to integrate with those front ends for a subscription piece?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And for us, the way that we do it is kind of, let's put that front end work up front. And so we're directly tied into a Shopify, a BigCommerce, et cetera, Salesforce, Magento, to where it literally is, let's say you're a prospect of mine, Justin, and you're on Shopify. I'll just say what you need to do right now is go to the Shopify App Exchange and download the Ordergroove app. Let's get started, right? I mean, I'm oversimplifying it a bit. There needs to be some hooks done, but it's already all pre-built. And so it's not like every implementation we do is starting from scratch. We've got, do step 1, step 2, step 3 type of, implementation guides for clients, and they just have to walk through that process. Again,
because
it
building
still sounds a little simple, but there needs to be more work, but it literally is really straightforward.
Building everyone from scratch just wouldn't be scalable, I would think.
Oh, no, we used to do that. Yeah, in the Ordergroove early days, it was more of a managed service where every deal was a custom deal. And to your point, that just doesn't scale. Yeah. It does not scale.
You talked about work-life balance. You talked about flipping the switch. Is there any advice that you'd give someone wanting to pursue a career like yours?
Go for it. I mean, I feel like I've earned what I've had, but I've also been really fortunate, right? Like I got into marketing technology at a time where it was kind of the beginning of the hockey stick, right? It was the beginning of not really the beginning of the internet, but when it really started to take off. And I don't see Mark, as we call it, going away any day soon. And so if you want to do it, the advice I would give is, clearly, you need to understand how Ordergroove works. You need to understand how Commission Junction works. You need to understand, how site analytics works, whatever it might be. So you have to do that. That's blocking and tackling 101. But you need to understand the ecosystem on a larger scale, right? I've been really fortunate in that, web analytics and email and data analytics and paid media. So I have what I think is a pretty unique kind of knowledge or background that when I'm talking to somebody, I understand everything. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but I feel like I understand everything they're going through, right? And so if you're gonna do that, sure, you got to learn your own company's product, but understand the ecosystem as much as humanly possible. Like put a boatload of work in understanding that, because if nothing else, it's going to give you a lot more credibility when you're sitting across the table, sitting across the Zoom meeting these days, from somebody, and that's huge. You're able to bring to the table ideas that more than likely the reps at your competitors aren't even thinking about.
You bring.
I don't know, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. You bring up something that's interesting. And a lot of times, like for those listeners out there, this is not scripted. Like we're just kind of jumping around. Yeah, we have a little bit of an idea what we're going to talk about. But, you brought up the use of LinkedIn and Zoom info and other technologies. How active are you guys? How active are you, first of all, Jim? And then how active is your company on social media with regards to vlogging? And the new big thing now is blogging. Actually having, blogs. Like what, I mean, I say it's the new big thing. Blogs have been around forever, but like a lot of these organizations are publishing specific blogs because, like trade shows and stuff, they're not really happening right now with COVID. So they're looking at every single possible channel lever to pull to be in touch with people. So how active are you personally on social media? I mean, you mentioned LinkedIn, but also Ordergroove. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, Ordergroove. So we just brought on. Lauren came on about 3 months ago, a new VP of marketing. So that stuff is getting ramped up. That's not to say we didn't do it previously, but I would say the cadence wasn't as frequent as we probably would have liked. And I think we're seeing blog posts now, maybe not weekly, but maybe every other week. So it's at least it's a pretty solid cadence in that sense. For me, I mentioned the first thing I do every day from a prospecting standpoint. I go to LinkedIn and I'm like, okay, who's got work anniversaries, who started a new job, and who's got a birthday? And I wish them a happy birthday. I say, hey, congrats on the new gig. Takes me all of 5 minutes. But I think it's just the idea of kind of staying in touch with that network. You're probably like me in that you learn someone's name, you have a 5-second conversation with them, you connect with them on LinkedIn, right? So I've got, I think at last count, 5,100 people I'm connected to.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you more than 5% of them by name. Like I couldn't rattle off a whole lot. I could get to 100, and then the rest are just arbitrary guesses.
Yeah.
But this allows me to kind of stay in contact with them in a pretty easy way. And so yeah, that's one of the things I definitely do. I haven't adopted Twitter a huge amount for work. I can't figure out how to make it work in that sense from a work standpoint.
Yeah, it's like there are not enough characters. Like I want to tweet more,
Yeah, well, and these days, Twitter has just turned into an explosive place, and
oh god, yeah,
I kind of stay away from it.
Oh yeah,
and that's not a political commentary by any stretch of the imagination.
But it is a political forum for sure. My God.
Yeah.
By the way, I've got, just like you, 50. I just looked 5,900 some odd connections.
Yep.
And it's so funny because there's two camps, right? There's camp A that says you cast the widest net you possibly can, connect with everybody. And then there's camp B that I really fall into. Like I have actually spoken with over the years that I've had a LinkedIn account, every single one of those people. I look in my connection requests, like, there's people I don't know. And I always reach out to them. I take the time and say, hey Jim, it'd be honored to connect with you. I'm a little old fashioned. I only connect with people that I know, that I've spoken to. So I'm happy to set up a call at which time we'll connect. And I mean that. I'm not BSing people. Like I literally mean that, because guess what? You might reach out to me and be like, hey, Justin, I'm just looking at my thing. Hey, can you make a quick intro to Fives? I know the guy. I actually know the guy. So yeah, I can absolutely do that. Based on my business, I'd probably be looking to monetize that. But
hopefully, knock on wood.
But yeah. So I don't know what camp you fall in, but I definitely lean toward speaking to people, getting to know people before I connect them, just because I want to keep that LinkedIn profile as pure as the connections.
Yeah, no, I think that's smart. I'm to answer your question, I'm probably a little bit of both. Like early on, it was more of a quantity than it was.
Oh, me too, for sure.
And now I've started to kind of migrate more towards, when I connect with somebody, I always add a note to it. Hey, looking forward to our call next, whatever it might be, next Thursday. Thanks for the 10 minutes, or the fact you could join yesterday's call. I try to personalize it a little bit, because I think that's really important. Because like you, I get so many LinkedIn requests, and I'm like, what? Who are you? Like
you'll blow up. You'll blow up on
in Zimbabwe.
Yeah, you'll get some requests from this. Yeah. You will. But the good news is that the majority of the folks that are listening to this, are looking to advance their career, or learn about you and talk to you and talk to you about what you do, aside from just hearing this. But we talked a little bit about newer technologies, a few moments ago. It was actually kind of as you were talking about utilizing LinkedIn and all that good stuff. And, subscriptions is hot right now, right? The subscription space is hot. What else you seen out there in the industry? What else are you seeing that's interesting, that's hot? Is subscriptions it? You're talking to a recruiter, by the way, that was recruiting solely in supply chain, ERP, blah, 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 supply chain for retailers. Yeah. And I was recruiting the year that online sales surpassed in-store sales for the first time. And like the light bulb went off. Retargeting was called, you know, e-commerce platforms, companies like ATG and Fry Commerce and Blue Martini. Good friend of mine, Rob Neibauer, he was the VP of sales, and Stu Bloom was the CEO. Just unbelievable people, just great people. These were all clients of mine, and that's when the light bulb went off in my head, and I shifted from solely brick and mortar to the online piece. But what else are you seeing that's hot out there?
I mean, two things probably stand out. One would be, you know, the cookieless world is going to happen. It's a question of not if, but rather when. And by cookies, I mean specifically third-party cookies. And so as a quick education for those that might not know, so a first-party cookie, let's say I go to Toyota.com and I'm looking for a new truck, and I build the truck online and I go through and I look at it. That's a first-party cookie. That information is owned by Toyota. Now, maybe I'll go to Car and Driver website and I'll look at reviews for Toyota Tacoma and that sort of thing. Toyota can then buy that information, but that's referred to as a third-party cookie. They didn't collect it themselves. They're buying it from someone else. I think that world of third-party cookies is gonna have a tough time going forward. So we need to figure
GDPR.
out exactly.
Yeah.
The Cal 2020 privacy stuff. You know, the EU is much more stringent on that sort of privacy data than we are here in the US, thankfully, to a certain extent for us. And I don't mean us Ordergroove, but just us in marketing technology. And so I think that needs to be solved. And I'm unfortunately not smart enough technically to know what that solve is. I mean, is it leveraging blockchain? Is it something else? I don't know. But I think that's going to come to fruition at some point very quickly if it already hasn't started. And then the other one I think is, and I'm going to kind of go back to my DMP and attribution days, connected TV, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you think about 2004, 2005, 2006, this time of year, people were all making their prognosis of what's going to be hot next year. And next year was always the year of mobile. Well, if you've got your little flip phone, that doesn't mean anything. It wasn't until, we got these behemoths that we actually started to leverage them, and mobile came to fruition. Well, the biggest question for me, and I'll go back now to the connected TV piece, you think about the big four screens, right? Laptop, tablet, mobile, and TV. Three of those talk together really well, or can, right? The laptop, the tablet, and the mobile phone, we can sync those together. We can see activity across them. We can target people on all three of those platforms. But TV is its own little island, right? It's out there. A marketer's dream, a CMO's dream, is to be able to say, Jim is looking, not Jim, but the person that owns this device is looking at Nike running shoes, and lo and behold, up on my screen in front of me during NFL Sunday, I see a Nike running shoes ad. Being able to tie those together, I'll put it this way: I really hope I'm at that company when that happens.
Yeah,
because
I'm super surprised.
Think about those TV budgets.
Yeah. I am so surprised. Still. I mean, Apple's got their Apple TV. I'm surprised they just haven't made a television with it in there. I can't believe it. That's a giant iPhone, I just can't believe they haven't come out with it. They're probably working on it. I mean, Apple. I mean, not the guy they do it, but they need the buy-in from the Charter Communications, the Comcasts, the content providers. They need to be able to monetize it. They haven't figured that out. To me, that's probably the biggest hurdle. Yeah, we use Apple TV. Yeah. I don't use. We don't have cable. We cut the cord a couple of years ago. That's all I use.
Oh, see,
Apple TV. Yeah. But I still have them on Toshiba and Samsung and LG televisions. Why not an Apple TV? 6.
I can't. To your point, I can't imagine it's far away.
I know, right? Based on what you're saying. Hey, this is a little opportunity for you. Are you working on any other projects? You got any dreams out there?
Yeah, to be Justin 2.0.
Oh my God, that's.
I mean, this is definitely early stages. But I'm an avid podcast listener, whether it's sports podcasts, Bill Simmons, etc., politics, just stuff in general, current events things. But one of the things that I've thought about a lot is we've been in this constant state of war for the last decade plus. You see the numbers of people who are killed in action, but I think as a citizenry, we've kind of become numb to it, and I don't stress that people don't care about it, right? I know that they do.
We forget.
Yeah,
really easy.
Exactly.
You know?
And I would like to kind of shine a light on those people that, whether they were sailors, Marines, soldiers, whatever it might be, is to have a podcast that looks into their story, right? What's their background? What were they like as kids? Who are their, talk to their friends, their family, hopefully fellow service members, and just be able to kind of shine a light on, these fallen heroes, as I call them, to be able to learn a little bit about them and see the face and understand the story behind it. Because like I said, right now it's just a number, X number of people
Wow.
passed, were killed in Afghanistan last week or whatever it might be.
My God.
Yeah, definitely a little passion project, but we'll see.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you what. First of all, I'm absolutely happy to help you get started with that in any way I possibly can. But with all these virtual meetings, I mean, you could literally have a cast of folks, on a Zoom and recording it as a podcast specifically for that. You'd have to look into some data around like when family members, friends would be ready, to have that conversation. There's probably some data out there. But man, I mean, I think of my grandfather, my grandparents, even from a personal perspective, just, my grandfather was in the Army, but I mean, they're gone. And like, dude, we forget so fast. And it's not like we forget everything, but the older we get, kind of the fuzzier it gets, the cloudier it gets. So
agreed.
If there was essentially a forum where we could speak to that, I mean, like, it'd be huge.
Yeah. And to your point, from a timing standpoint, you don't want to give these folks a call a week after it happened, right? I mean, I'm talking a year or so. They've had a chance to kind of digest it and whatnot. Yeah. And I understand going into this that not every family is going to be willing to talk about it. I get that. I mean, for some folks, it's either too raw, too personal, whatever.
Think about the healing power though that this could have for these.
It could be very cathartic, I think.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I agree.
And you're onto something, buddy. Once again, let's
knock on wood.
We'll talk about it. For sure.
Oh, I appreciate that. I really do.
Getting back to a breath of fresh career. What advice can you give listeners? You talked about do it, just do it. I mean, you and I have talked about doing epic shit, right? Hold it up, right? Epic shit.
My latest tattoo.
Yeah, I love it, man. I freaking love it. What advice can you give our listeners? Life, work, entrepreneurship, etc.
Yeah, I mean, we touched on it. It's that work-life balance, right? I mean, if your batteries are just down to zero, I'm no good to anyone. I'm no good to my wife. I'm no good to my family, my kids, no good to work, right? Like, I've got to be able to go back and get that balance in. And I think after 20 odd years, I've figured it out to a certain extent. Being a parent to half dozen kids and now 3 grandkids, you're forced to figure out that balance. But
what do the grandkids call you, by the way? Come on.
Oh, I'm Big Papa.
Oh,
yeah. Yep.
I love it, Big Papa. Yep. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I had to ask.
Oh, no. Hey, that's fine. It really came from my wife. She had no desire to be known as grandma. So first off, she came up with her own name, and then she's like, okay, well, I got to come up with one for you now too. And I'm like, I really don't care, whatever you want to do. And then I kind of grew on me. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. I like that one.
Great.
But yeah, I mean, I think that having that balance, and for me, it's putting the phone down at a certain time when I can. I at night, I typically alternate between one nonfiction book, a Tom Clancy or something that I can just kind of lose my mind in. And then I'll go to a nonfiction book, right? So just started one of Walter Isaacson's, who I think is a phenomenal nonfiction writer. He wrote Steve Jobs. He did one on Ben Franklin, Da Vinci. But the one I just started, literally finished the first chapter last night. It's called Innovators, and it's about people starting literally in the 1800s and moving forward. So he's going to cover off on, Gates and Bill Jobs, but also, further back as well. Yeah. So yeah, it's just something to, and it's not and every once in a while I'll mix in a sales book too, right? Like I need to kind of keep that going because, muscle memory only takes you so far. And you've got to refresh yourself in those things. Like, what are those skills? What do I need to do? I'm a big fan of I'll get off a call and I'll ask my sales engineer or my boss, like, okay, what didn't I do right? Like, what do I need? What did I forget? What did I screw up? So you got to, it's constant evolution.
Wow.
You just got to keep working at it. But you mentioned going out and getting on the water for fly fishing. I wish I could get out there more. To me, that's probably one of the greatest ways to just detach. It's you in the water and hopefully some fish.
Water, man. Oh,
yeah.
awesome.
But I love to golf as well. When I can, hopefully, 25, 30 rounds a year. So not too psychotic, but enough to make it fun. And I'm a fanatic when it comes to Peloton. I just love the bike. I love the surface. And honestly, at the end of the day, there is no better way to just get that stress of the day out of my system than hopping on the bike for 30 minutes, 45, an hour, whatever it might be.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's, we don't have one. I was an avid cyclist, bike racer.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just, I've thought about it. We have a whole gym at the house, but, going back to here in the water and being outside and fly fishing and crisp, cool air and, leaves dropping around you. And, oh my God, man, it doesn't get much better than that. It really does.
It's awesome. Yep.
Anything, if you were in my shoes, is there anything that I should have asked you and didn't during this?
That's a good question. I mean, we've covered off on a lot of stuff. I know that previously we've talked about, influencers and I don't mean, gosh, I look at Steve Jobs and say, gosh, I wish I were him or could be like him. But, the people that just kind of got you where you are. And,
yeah,
I think of my dad a lot. He unfortunately passed away Christmas morning, 89. So it's been a while. I think I was an unexpected final child. I'm 8 years younger than my brother. But he grew up in rural Eastern Oregon on a farm during the Great Depression. So he was probably mid 40s when he had me, right? That's why I'm pretty sure I wasn't intended. But like I said, grew up on a farm during the Depression, and for him it was just work, right? And so I think I really got that work ethic from him, and to this day still kind of wonder, okay, what would Dad do in this scenario? I mean, it doesn't happen every day, but it still does. Yeah, I mean that, and then I think one other person, it's an odd one. So I go through all my initial Marine Corps schools. One thing we call the basic school. It's basically boot camp for officers, 6 months in Quantico, Virginia. Then you go to your follow-on school. And so my first duty station was over in Okinawa, Japan. And I go into the CO's office, commanding officer's office, for the first time, and I'm really not sure what the heck is going to happen and what's I have no idea, right? Like, I am this 23-year-old second lieutenant who couldn't be greener than the uniform he was wearing at that point. And Lieutenant Colonel Larry Clark, great guy, sat me down, kind of orientation stuff that you would expect. And then he's like, all right, Jim, there are two things you need to do. And if you do these two things, your Marines will follow you anywhere. So I'm like, what is it? What is it? He's like, always tell them what's going on. Communicate with them as much as you can. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Okay. And Colonel Clark, what's the next one? It's like, just make sure they get paid on time. Like, that's all I got to do? Like, yeah, you do that and you're going to be fine. And he was spot on. And to this day, I mean, I don't have to worry about people getting paid, but it's that idea of, hey, I need to make sure I'm communicating properly with everyone. So whether that's my 15-year-old daughter who's got a mind of her own, or a prospect,
or a sales engineer, or an
yeah,
integration implementation team. Yeah, absolutely.
or a recruiter and what I'm looking for,
Yeah.
it's just, you definitely have to understand how to communicate with people for sure. But I don't know. Those are the two things that I think about quite often.
Great way to connect the story there, man. That's awesome. And you
Thanks.
can remember names. Look at you. You're rattling names off when you were 23 years old in Okinawa.
Great place for scuba diving.
Okay. Yeah, I'm claustrophobic. That ain't happening. I don't like sharks.
Oh, I remember you saying that on a different podcast.
No scuba diving for me. I'm straight, dude. Freeze that water over. I'll be on it. I'll be on it all day. All day. I don't want to have anything. I like sitting on the beach, maybe going in a couple, 20 feet in, maybe whatever. But other than that, I'm straight, man. I don't even like going, like jumping off a boat, dude. I'm that guy. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh, okay. I get you. I get you. Yeah, it was, I loved it. We did probably in 2 years, I did 150 dives over there. It just crystal blue water. Amazing place. So anyway, not to
should have been a Navy man. You could have been a SEAL.
Well, wow. When I got back, my duty station at Pendleton was with an organization that I was still the supply officer. But it was, so in Okinawa was with a type of air squadron. At Pendleton, it was with an infantry battalion. So I did get to do a lot of fun stuff. That's for sure. But no, not that far. Not that far.
Okay. Where do you want listeners to connect with you? Like how should they connect with you?
Yeah, I mean, as we've talked about, I'm a LinkedIn guy. I spend at least 2 or 3 10 to 15 minute sessions a day, just getting connected with people, seeing, I like to follow what people are posting. I've got prospects, literally every prospect I have, I follow their company. I need to see, what things are they releasing, and it's good to stay up on their trends. So that's the easiest way for sure.
Okay. Yeah, we'll include, as I indicated earlier, we'll include a link to your LinkedIn profile here in the description. So thank you, Jim. Thank you so much for your time. I've taken a lot away from it. I'm sure our listeners have as well. I can't wait to see, Ordergroove and where you're able to take this company for sure.
Looking forward to it. Yeah. And hey, Justin, this has been a blast. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we'll be in touch, buddy. And thanks again. Have a great Thanksgiving.
All right. You as well. Enjoy your turkey.
Oh, you too.
All right. Bye.
Bye.